Hello everyone, welcome to your weekly tech update, the show that explores the newest, coolest, and craziest side of tech available on the interwebs. I am your video game geek, Ray McNeil. Coming up on the program today, we're talking electricity-free cooling. It could be possible with a new material that's inspired by camel fur. BMW's new electric scooter concept aims to be your perfect cyberpunk mount. Happening in this week's What The? It is the most metal Halloween display that I have ever seen. And we'll wrap up the program with this week's Moment of Joy. All that and a whole lot more coming up on today's edition of your weekly tech update. Next. Materials stay cooler when water evaporates off of them. But once all that water is gone, well, the cooling effect stops. Bearing that in mind, MIT scientists have developed a camel fur-inspired material that could keep items cool without using electricity. Although it might initially seem like a bare-skinned camel would probably stay cooler overall than one covered in fur, it's actually not the case. The fur of a camel is fascinating. It acts as a gas-permeable insulating layer, and it shades the animal's skin from the external heat while still allowing sweat to evaporate off of it. As a result, the evaporative cooling effect lasts longer. The camel still sweats, but not nearly as much as the hypothetical bare-skinned one would before becoming dehydrated. MIT's material works in a similar fashion, as it consists of a layer of hydrogel on the bottom covered with a layer of porous silica-based aerogel on top. The hydrogel is made up of 97% water, which evaporates as the gel heats up, thus lowering the gel's temperature. The aerogel has very low thermal conductivity. That means that it doesn't absorb much heat from its environment. This means that the hydrogel beneath it stays cooler than it would otherwise, so its evaporative cooling effect is prolonged. In lab tests, a bare 5mm layer of the hydrogel lost all of its water to evaporation within 40 hours. This was at an ambient temperature of 86 degrees Fahrenheit. Once that hydrogel was covered with a 5mm layer of aerogel, however, it lasted for 200 hours at the same temperature before becoming parched. Additionally, once the hydrogel dries out, the cooling material can be made functional again simply by adding more water. Production of the aerogel currently involves large and expensive equipment, so the researchers are looking into more practical, less costly alternatives. Ultimately, though, it's hoped that the camel fur-inspired material could find use in developing nations or other places lacking infrastructure for the shipping and storage of food and medicine. The research is described in a paper that was recently published in the journal Joule. If you want to store data securely for a very long time, what storage medium do you use? According to Microsoft, well, you should choose its still in development quartz glass drive. It's called Project Silica, and it relies on femtosecond lasers that store data in a sheet of glass. As a proof of concept test for Project Silica, Microsoft collaborated with Warner Brothers to store the 1978 movie Superman on a piece of this glass, which measures 75 by 75 millimeters and is just 2 millimeters thick. It's the size of a drink coaster. The movie is stored by encoding the data with an infrared laser and creating layers of three-dimensional nanoscale gratings and deformations at various depths and different angles. Reading the data from the glass requires a machine learning algorithm that can decode images and patterns that are created as polarized light shines through the glass. So unlike Unlike storage mediums designed to work with desktop computers and mobile devices, well, Project Silica works with the resources offered by the cloud. It sounds complicated, but the upside is how robust this write-once storage medium is. Microsoft claims that the glass can be boiled in water, baked at 500 degrees Celsius, or blasted in a microwave and demagnetized, but the data will survive. The lifetime is also incredibly long and measures in at thousands of years. Warner Brothers may sound like an unusual first partner, as does Superman for a first storage experiment, but it makes sense with a bit of history. In the 1940s, Superman radio serials were recorded, and Warner Brothers archivist recently discovered that they had been stored on record-sized pieces of glass, with the bonus being that they still play today. So it's rather fitting that the Superman movie be stored on a piece of glass as well to ensure it remains playable into the future, just like those radio serials. It's easy to forget that Kawasaki is much more than a motorcycle company. While its famously crazy motorcycles are certainly the most visible part of the brand outside of Japan, Kawasaki Heavy Industries is a 124-year-old industrial colossus that brought in about $15 billion in revenue last year. Only $3.2 billion of that came from the motorcycle and engine division. A further $2.5 billion came in from energy systems and plant engineering, and $2.2 billion from precision machines and robotics. The largest segment of the Kawasaki empire, contributing to $4.6 billion, is its aerospace systems division. Kawasaki makes a small range of military and civil helicopters, as well as large turbofan engines for various Airbus and Boeing airliners. So this new K-Racer design is well within the company's wheelhouse. The K-Racer is an unmanned compound helicopter, compound referring to the fact that it uses multiple propulsion systems. Its 4-meter top rotor looks much like the one of any large helicopter, and it's clearly capable of modifying the angle of its blades as they rotate around the center shaft to give it omnidirectional tilt and movement capabilities. It has no tail rotor though, and instead two simple forward-facing props at the ends of its short wings handle the job of yaw control, as well as balancing out the torque from the main rotor so that it doesn't go spinning off into the weeds. This Kawasaki design won't completely eliminate the lift asymmetry of that top rotor, but the lift generated by both wings will mean that the K-Racer won't have to rely solely on that main rotor once it's moving at a decent speed. So it seems reasonable to expect that it'll be capable of higher speeds than conventional designs, although it's difficult to estimate by how much. For now, this thing is merely a technology demonstrator. Kawasaki has flown it in tests and shown it to be stable under autonomous control. The company's very Japanese press release says, "We will use the results obtained from this test for the development of VTOL vehicles, including manned, unmanned helicopters, and for the development of aircraft operation systems in conjunction with various services. We will contribute to society by making the most of our aviation technology, which includes the realization of VTOL systems in the future."